Hello Ubuntu fam! Today I wanted to share with you the tips, the tricks, the books that helped us getting our daughter to sleep 12 hours through the night at 11 weeks old. In the video you'll find the book recommendations, the books that we read before our daughter was born, while she was a newborn, and then you'll also find a couple key tips and tricks from the books, as well as our personal experience applying them. I'm saying we because my husband and I were both on the same page with this, and he is as passionate about this topic as I am, which I'm thankful for. I am sitting in our daughter's bedroom. We are in a rental, and it's not very decorated. It's more decorated behind the camera. However, this is where the magic happens in the sense of our daughter getting lots of sleep, which allows us to have time together in the evenings, or clean or cook or whatever may need to be done. When we were preparing to have our daughter, my husband was a full-time student, full-time working, and we just knew that we needed to prioritize getting her on a schedule or routine so that our lives could continue to function. He could continue with schooling and work, and I could continue with working as well. And so as we were going through it, there was a couple things I had heard of. I had heard of, one is the first book, Moms on Call. I first heard about this through YouTube videos. And so that's the first book that I had heard about. And then as we were getting closer to the due date, I was at my chiropractor, and he and his wife have like 9 kids. And he was like, you have to get this Baby Wise book. He mentioned that everyone prepares for the items for the baby, right? The baby registry and whatnot, but no one prepares for how to care for them throughout the day. And so he recommended this. He said him and his wife had no idea what they were doing with their first, and this transformed their next children that they had. Funny enough, we were actually gifted this at a work baby shower at my husband's job, and so one of his coworkers swears by this and utilizes this. And then I'm trying to think, I felt like there was a third person that also recommended this. So needless to say, I ended up buying Baby Wise first. I bought this on eBay. And so you can get all these books on eBay for cheaper than you would on Amazon or other major bookstores. But I did read a majority of it before Vera was born, so I kind of had an idea of the practices to put into place. And now in the book, they kind of talk about you can put them into place. You can put them into place right away or wait until they're a couple weeks old. And that's kind of what we did, I would say. We waited until she was like 2 weeks old before we really implemented these things. But let me tell you, they've transformed our life. And the number one thing that people ask us when we tell them how well she sleeps, how predictable she is, how early she started sleeping so long is like, how? And I always recommend these books, which I know if you're watching this video, you're probably desperate. I would still encourage you to get these books and read or skim through them, but I'll also share some of the main tips from them. Okay, a little overview about the books. Baby Wise is one book, and it's really about giving your infant the gift of nighttime sleep. So it's a lot about sleep, but there are other things, like they have medical stuff in here, or like registry items. I think this is an older book, so it's a little bit more out to date. Moms on Call, there's 3 of them. I couldn't find my first one, but there's one for 0 to 6 months, 6 to 15 months, and then 15 months to 4 years. And this book is it's written by 2 moms that are also RNs, and they have 8 kids together. And both books have a section on multiples, if you have multiples. And this book is more short and bullet points, so to the point. So I think it's easier to read and get the tips. However, it is more to the point. So there's some things and it will be like, do this, and it won't like say why. And so if you're looking for more of the why a schedule and routine and good sleep helps with a baby, I would recommend Baby Wise. But they're very similar. I just have read both, and it helps me give an understanding of why and then like the how too. But this also talks about the how. So that's an overview of the books. They're wonderful. They're my top recommendation if you're struggling. And there's lots of blog posts. So when I was in the newborn days, I just remember like looking up Babywise, like moms that had done it for years, like blog posts for more specific questions if you feel like it's not in the book. And I also, I think, what do they call this? Dog corner? Like a bunch of pages underlined. So that way I would have like a quick reference to things. I'm gonna share a couple of the tips and tricks that are the main points that help and the takeaways from the books. So the first thing is to focus on good nighttime sleep. You have to have full feedings and like a consistent daytime. So the daytime is really important for the nighttime to be. A couple things to make the daytime help support the nighttime is one, having a start time for your day. So typically maybe like 7:30, 8 a.m. Maybe for some people it's 10 a.m. I don't know. But having a start time that's typically 12 hours after their bedtime. So for Vera, when we did all this, we had her go to bed at 7 p.m. and we started our day at 7 a.m. And now having a consistent start time just helps them get in that circadian, I think it's called circadian rhythm. Maybe I'm saying it wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. But it helps their body get into the rhythm that, oh, typically during this time of the day we're eating or we're napping, and they kind of get in the flow of it. And so I know it's hard that if it was a rough night, like thinking of waking them up in the morning. However, this will set you up for success with just predictability and again, their body getting into a rhythm. So like I said, we did a 7 a.m. start time, and so regardless of the last feed during the night or whatnot, I'd wake her up at 7 a.m. and we would start our day. So, opening blinds, it was daytime, and daytime was different than nighttime. That's the first tip. And then also during the day, the second tip is that you want to feed like every 3 hours when they're newborns, up until they're several months old. And because maybe babies would be sleeping past that 3-hour mark or whatnot, but Babywise and Moms on Call, they recommend waking up a baby if it's their time to eat, even if they're sleeping. And so we would feed every 3 hours during the day, even if that meant I had to wake her up from a nap. And that was the daytime. So daytime, we ate, and we ate regularly and consistently. And so that way she learned that during the daytime, we're eating often, and then during the nighttime is when we sleep more. Another tip during the day is that both books recommend, and this I think is huge, following a eat, play, sleep schedule. So what that means is right when they wake up at the start of the day, or right when they wake up after their nap, they eat right away. So they eat right away, and you focus on really full feeding. So make sure the baby is awake, alert, and eating. Now when they're very little, this is hard. So sometimes you have to, strip them down, get them cold, or tickle them, or just talk to them to really get them awake and alert. But make sure that they're eating and that they're getting full. And then you have playtime, right? So again, when they're little, this playtime is very short, but as they age, it becomes longer and longer. And then they go to sleep. Oftentimes, I have other friends and whatnot, I've heard that they would feed the baby to sleep. And that was their way to get the baby to sleep, right? That they would have them awake, and then they'd give them a bottle or nurse them, and then they would become drowsy and go to sleep. And that's great, and that works when they're eating consistently during the day, but then once they start dropping feedings as they get older, that doesn't work, and then you're having a hard time getting the baby to sleep. So not using feeding asleep as a crutch. So we never did that. We always did eat, play, and then sleep. And then the other thing was when after their awake window and they are ready for their next nap, again, they needed to nap, so that way they would be ready for the next feeding 3 hours from the start of the first feeding. So when our daughter Vera was ready it was her nap time, what we would do is in the beginning, we would just hold her until she was drowsy and put her to sleep awake, not sleeping. Drowsy, but not fully sleeping. That is key. So that way they learn to fall asleep on their own and put them to sleep. Now, if you do this when they're young, it translates to now, let's say our 1.5-year-old, Vera, when we put her down for a nap or bedtime, we literally just put her in the crib, we sing to her, pray, whatever, do those things. Those are important. We can be like roughhousing and playing with her, and then we turn on her white noise and we just put her in the crib, and she knows how to go to sleep on her own because she's been doing it her whole life. And so that's the other key as well. Now, I will say there was definitely times that we held her and we had contact naps, or she had naps in her stroller, or she was just fussy. Definitely, I think month 2, she really struggled. Like, she'd go to sleep well and then she would wake up, usually after 45 minutes, and she would struggle to continue her nap. So we'd sometimes go in there and have to hold her the rest of the nap and whatnot. So we definitely did that, but the majority of the time we tried to focus on putting her down to sleep drowsy, but not fully sleeping. With those tips for the daytime, so having a start time, feeding every 3 hours, making sure the baby's getting full feedings, and then following that eat, play, sleep schedule, it really sets up success for the nighttime. So I'll go in and share a little bit of our own personal experience with applying this. We did do some crying it out in the beginning. Baby White and Moms on Call talk about like having a time limit. And so for us, it was always typically 15 minutes. We would do 15 minutes, and if she started crying, when we put her on drowsy, we let her cry for that long. And it was so hard in the beginning. It was really hard. I would often just pray for her, pray for us. But to be honest, it didn't last long at all. And she learned that I am okay, I am safe, I can put myself to sleep, and she learned that we were predictable, right? So we were gonna come wake her up. She was still sleeping when it was time to eat again. And, when she started sleeping longer chunks at night or through the night, she knew mom or dad was gonna wake her up at the start time of the day. So it gives them a sense of security, and that helps a lot. So our experience with our first child, Vera, is that typically she was sleeping hours per night based on how many weeks old she was. So I remember around like 7 weeks old, she was sleeping like 7 to 8 hours a night. Typically, she'd go to sleep at like her bedtime 7, and then we would do like a dream feed around 10, 11, and then she would last, until morning. And then at 11 weeks, around there, I noticed that she was waking up earlier, and I had read that sometimes that means the dream feed needs to stop. So one night we put her to bed at 7, didn't do a dream feed, and she just started sleeping to 7 a.m. And we were like shocked and surprised and so happy, but we never looked back. So at 11 weeks old, she started sleeping 12 hours through the night, and she has done that ever since. She never had, I know some parents talk about like a 4-month regression or maybe other regressions that I don't know about. She did not have any regressions. The only times that she would wake in the night, there was of course times throughout her first 1.5 years, but like if she was sick sometimes, or sometimes just random ones, like, but in general, like we could go weeks, months without her waking in the night. She would just sleep 12 hours through the night, and so it was a huge blessing to us. And so many people were like, you meet people in public and they're like, what, how is that possible? But also knowing so many friends and actually family members that have done the same thing, I know that it's possible and it's actually achievable. And I know so many other babies who sleep this way if you follow the principles. So we have lots of friends and family and their babies sleep great, because one, I told so many people that I knew about this book, or they knew it already by themselves, and they would apply it. And it might look different in every baby's life. They might not sleep, maybe they're sleeping 12 hours by 10 weeks, or maybe it's 14 weeks. But needless to say, it does set up the babies for success and predictability if and when we have another child to apply these same principles. I hope this helps give some small tips that you can apply and just give you encouragement that it's possible and it does get better. Those early days, early months are hard. They are hard. You often maybe don't know what's wrong or what's going on, but it does get better. I would say for sure by Vera being like 12 weeks old, 3 months, her naps were so predictable, so consistent, and her nighttime sleep was the same. And truly since then, it's always been that. And we're so thankful for that. And we know that this might not work the same with every child, but we do believe that it does help set them up for success. Let me know if you have any questions in the comment box or what your experience was, but I hope this is inspiring for those that are looking for something. And again, I would recommend reading the books and getting the copies in your hand yourself to read the tips and to read the full why, the full picture. But those tips I shared are some of the main takeaways from the books. Thanks for listening. I hope that this was encouraging and informative, and I hope to see you again soon.